Good morning, afternoon, evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm George Moss again here at allpointstv.com and also 92.1, that's WFOV. And we're glad to have, as always, both audiences with us this afternoon. We're coming together at 2 o'clock on Monday. And we are very happy to be here the weekend, the day after the weekend in which the Queen of, the Duchess of Sussex got married this past weekend, and I guess we're about they spent $45 million. Did you know they spent $45 million in that wedding?
Yeah, that's, I never understood that. I never understood why they got to spend that much money on that. I mean, okay, another thing is too, I don't understand this. When people live together for years, and they'll tell you, say, why don't you just get married? Well, I can't afford to get married. Which means they want the big wedding. Well, that's you live together, say, 5-10 years. I don't think I really want to come to your wedding. You probably want a gift, right? Okay,
yeah.
So I'm a cheap person, I guess, but it's like, you guys should have been able to buy everything you need. You've had a life together for how many years now?
We can't afford to get married because we're paying for them $45 million.
Yeah, I mean, that's absurd. That's absurd. I mean, I know the thing is, a lot of that's going to go to security probably. But
yeah, they said 90% of it, 95% of it went to security. But $45 million, and I don't know if did you see any of it, John? Did you see the...
I take delight in the fact that I'm actually totally a non-royal. I mean, I know about the history of the royal families. That intrigues me more than the current people now, because they're basically figureheads. And I was, if you think that you and I always say that politicians are parasites. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about the most parasitic group of politicians on the planet? It's the royal families. I mean, let's face it, they're thugs. That's what they are. They're descendants from thugs who beat up on people and who had other people willing to do that so they can divvy up everybody else's property and make them slaves. So I don't see anything good about the royal family.
Yeah, that's not on the ballot, is it, in terms of you being able to vote? How many person would have voted for $45 million to be spent on the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in a wedding ceremony? I got up at 5 o'clock at the beginning of the ceremony, and that was one long ceremonial performance because it was still going on 5 hours later. It had me wasting my time, but I wanted to see what they were doing. So here, I guess there was one advantage, and that was there was no commercial intervention, so I didn't have to watch any commercials. It was just really amazing, though, that all of this hoopla is made because two people are getting married and the whole world is watching it as if there is some propriety that would have some benefit to the world. They just sell us all kinds of things, and that kind of ties in with what I want to talk about. Today I want to talk about the brainwashing that goes on, and how the world, it's certainly true in America, but the world is brainwashed. People are, you're talking about sheeples. The people, you could tell the people anything and tell them this is important. If you put it on television and make it appear that it's an important event because you are building it up as something of major importance. I mean, it's two people getting married, and it happens on a regular basis. Hopefully we'll get a lot of people that are here having these children and they're not married to their partners who are having children. Hopefully, if it would have that effect, if people would be embroiled in watching it, and then after watching it would model that behavior, and we had more persons married and we don't have these children being born out of wedlock, okay, it serves a positive end. But people watching the ceremony, and it won't have any effect upon anything other than the fact that we have Prince Harry getting married and his the Duchess of Sussex, they got married. So what's the utility of that beyond the fact that two people got married, which that should happen on a regular basis with people that are committing their lives to each other and deciding they want to spend their life together and have a contract to do that, through taking vows to get that placed before the authorities and pledge yourself to be there, knowing most of you are not, knowing that most of us who are saying these things are not there for the long run. I mean, how many persons are going to be there? I want to see how many persons taking these vows right now. Some of them don't even want to go through the vows and even pledge to doing the thing along that line. But how many persons take those vows, and within a matter of time, they are involved in extramarital, relationships. I'm not talking about infidelity. I'm talking about how we have serial marriages in this country, where persons marry one after the other. They pledge that they're going to be there for a lifetime with this person. Then they get married again.
I think a tip for all of us guys to
make the same pledge.
I think all the tip the guys out there should nowadays. I guess you have to extend it to the same-sex marriage couples, people, whatever. But if you ask your significant other to marry you, and their response is yes, I think you'd make an excellent first husband or wife. You're probably not looking at somebody who's all that intent on having a lasting relationship. So.
Yeah, John, I wonder how many persons actually believe that they, when they say it, do they believe it at that point, and they simply fall short? Just like our, January 1st, we vow every year that we're going to keep our, covenant with things that we plan to do the rest of the year. We're not going to violate that during the 365 days of the year. And then on the 2nd of January, every one of the vows we've taken, the New Year's resolutions, we are not going to do this, we're not going to do that. And it sounds like the same thing we said the year before. But when you take a pledge, how many persons? We don't have a study of this. How many persons that take these pledges on any level, the marital vows? How many persons actually intend to keep those vows and to death do us part? Because I see a lot of people still living, and they're divorced. A lot of people, John. It's like more than half the people that get married, end up in divorce. And then what about the 75% in the black community, for example, where they talk about broken families? These are not broken families. These are families that never formed in the first place. And so 75% of the people don't even take the vows and don't pledge to be there 9 months after the child is there. They're not there. And how many of them that take the pledge intend to stay with that partner the rest of their lives? I can raise my hand and say that I'm one, but
you married later in life, didn't you?
I waited until I did it the way I say it is the right way, to get the career in place, get the money coming in through the door, so you'll have something to base a romance on. Because I'm a strong believer in that saying that romance without finance is nonsense.
I never heard that, but I love it. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
You can see if you don't have the financial backing to take care of that responsibility, that you're taking a vow to be together forever, and forever is a paycheck.
Do you know that song "Love Will Keep Us Together"? Then it just sounds more poetic. Love and financial stability and emotional stability. It doesn't roll off the tongue as easy.
Yeah. Who was that? Put that song out, John.
Captain
Love. Yeah, Captain and Tennille. Yeah. Love will keep it together. Yeah, and that other song that kind of negates that one, that says that what's that song that says your love give you such a thrill, but love don't pay my bills, I need some money. And they got the background saying, that's what I want. John,
yeah.
You gotta, so to make a commitment, okay, fine. Now let's see, and I hope it lasts forever. But there are no guarantees that any of these, and I just love the chemistry between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. They couldn't stop smiling at each other, and you could tell they're in love and all that. Everybody's in love when I go to the restaurant, I can tell you people have been married. How long they've been married by the way they're sitting together at the table. The ones that just got married, or the ones who are on their way possibly to get married, or ones who got a relationship where they are just now getting involved in a relationship. I can tell they're sitting close together, they look at each other's eyes, and every word that falls off of their lips, they're looking at their lips. They can't hardly wait for the words to get out. And I say, okay, that group right there, people that's acting that way in the restaurant here, they just got married, or their relationship is very fresh. And then the ones been married for as long as I've been married, which is half my life, by the way. John, I've been married 37 years. I'm 74 years old now, and I've been married half my life.
Did you ever hear what this comedian said?
And I'm not tired.
This comedian says if you ask a guy who just recently got married, like within a few months, what constitutes adultery, they'll say even if you look at if you just look at another woman and you think she's attractive, that's all adultery. They say, well, you ask a guy who's been married for like 25 years what constitutes adultery, he'll start off something like, well, if you use a condom. So it's like a perspective. But I mean, I've seen couples. I had my cousin, my mom's cousin. She and her husband married for probably over 50 years. I mean, last I knew, I talked to him. Now I guess the actual blood relation is the female, and she's Alzheimer's, sadly. But I don't know if she's even still with us because they live in Florida now. But they still had this great affection for each other, and I mean, it was like 50 some years in this relationship, and they still had this almost like newness to it. I mean, that was amazing. I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, John, you said last week we were talking about Will Durant, and you mentioned his wife Ariel when we were talking about the story of civilization, and you said that they had lived together so long that they started looking like each other. They're eating the same food and in the same environment.
Same hairstyles, similar hairstyles. I mean, I don't know if you ever seen a picture of them. They used to have on some of the pages of some of the later editions that had of the encyclopedia they compiled. They'd have it at a couple, and they're like in their 80s, and I think they died relatively short time from each other.
Yeah, when you're married, when you live together that long, it's not unusual for the marital partners. I've even read where once one of the partners of long duration passes, the other partner within minutes, in some cases, John, days, sometimes 5 minutes apart, they die because they're so glued to each other in the relationship. Something about the spirit. You don't want to continue in the aftermath of a partner that you've had all your life. I look at some of those persons that are really bonded, that actually took those vows and really meant it. And I hope everybody that gets married will live up to the promise they made.
I know a couple.
But I know that and I can speak for myself, I know that I'm not going anywhere, and I don't think my partner is going anywhere.
I know a friend of mine we went to junior high school with, because we went to different high schools, and I caught up with him. And a few years ago, sadly, his parents both were ill, and they're in the same hospital at the same time. One passed away on the cusp of Christmas Eve day, and the other one died at Christmas itself, just a couple of hours apart. But they didn't know the other one was in a coma, and didn't know that the other one had passed away. But they I think the one who was still in the coma almost like sensed that one was gone. The one that had passed away was gone, and it was sad. I mean, but he had buried both of his parents they died within hours of each other, maybe 2 or 3 hours of each other, and that was sad. But then took it very philosophically. He said basically it's like you have to deal with it now. I'm dealing with it right now, both of them. And now it's like, but now they're together. He said, to me, I think they're together. He's very, they had a kind of a religious family there. So
they should have had Meghan Markle when they asked him, will you take this man to be your husband, and that you will cherish him above all things and all of these things you commit to? And she said, I will. But she had been married before. John, she should have said, I will this time.
I will. I promise this time. Look at the money we're spending. I have to. I got to invest it. I've really kind of dug myself deep here in this one. Eyes are on me,
Yeah, I mean, I wish everyone well. And I hope the queen, who was that? Was Queen Elizabeth there? I don't think she was there. Queen Elizabeth II.
Oh yeah, she was there. I saw a picture of it. I saw a picture of her where it was it was Facebook. So I don't know if it was real or somebody put it together and photoshopped it. But yeah, she was up in like the bride was right there, and then just above her was seated the queen. So yeah, she was there. I mean, that's her grandson's wedding, and she's still able to attend things, physically. So I think she was there.
Okay, well, the father, Megan Markle's father, was not there, and I guess a lot, just like that uncle, when you have these family reunions, there's always some uncle that you hope doesn't show up. The one that's out there on the wild, and when you have the family reunion, you just hope he will not come, or she won't come, or they mess the whole thing up. He didn't come, and I don't think anybody missed him, because this guy seems to be a real jerk. Anytime you have your daughter getting married, and you out here making it difficult for the marriage to go forward, and peace and calm and love to prevail in the environment and things like that, and you out here making all this noise that is detrimental to the harmony of the relationship. Give peace a chance and give love a chance. And just the things that was going on, that's a dysfunctional family. And he wasn't there, and I don't think anybody missed him.
I think most American families would constitute being, if you actually look at what they consider dysfunctional. I think there's only maybe a five percentage points of the population actually could say perfectly happily functioning families. Though I'm serious, dysfunctionalism comes in all forms.
Yeah, Well, John, that's the gossip part of our program today. We can stop gossiping now, but that was something that I just I have to tell you, I was there for I stayed there from 5 o'clock. Because they said it's going to start, the preliminary is going to start about 5. So I got up and went to the, I didn't want to wake anybody up, my dogs, we all in the same room. And so I didn't want to wake anybody up, so I got up and went to the family room and watched it down the hallway, because I was the only one up at that time. So
you don't have a DVR you could have set so you can actually record it.
I wish I had thought of that, John. I wish I had thought of that, because I could have gotten a lot more sleep. But I watched it 5 hours. It was still going strong at 10 o'clock. It still wasn't over. And I decided, well, okay, I see who's there. One of the songs they sang, I mean, they took this thing. This was way different from the usual ceremony. John, they sang one of Benny King's song, "Stand By Me." you don't normally have any soul in these marital ceremonies when you have the king or the prince, all these persons getting married. It's like it's got to be on a certain. It's like as a rule says it has to be dull. And there they are up there. Had this one minister of the Episcopal Church from Chicago, and he's up there talking about Dr. King. So Dr. King is now a man of all seasons. People getting married, and King is brought into it. He's talking about love, and it's not love between two people. It's a love of the universe and all of that. And they're playing his sermon, and
which is totally not biblical, but okay. Okay, I mean that's like I could see far off as guys not in the same class theologically as I would want to attend. So
yeah, John, I was just amazed at it. Just went off and veered off into a direction that is not normative according to what happens in these very stoic, ceremonies. But they say that Harry and Meghan both agreed to have the choir to come there and sing the song by Benny King. When the night is come and the land is dark and the moon is the only thing you'll see, I won't be afraid as long as you stand by me. And so that was kind of like I was looking in the audience to see what's the response out there in the audience, and they all had their eyebrows raised. I mean, what is this? But it was you had the wedding of not only the two people, you had the wedding between the cultures, right? You had a culture in England, the way they do it over there, and they had the kind of things that go over here. So they brought some soul in there, and they were jamming in the choir. But be that as it may, hope they're going to have a wonderful life together. They deserve it. All people deserve to be happy, and hope they'll find the happiness that they had in their courtship. That happiness will follow them throughout the days of their life, and then I can say that I didn't spend 5 hours in vain.
Well, see, nothing good about it, though. He's so far down the line of succession for the throne, that they probably won't be as molested by the press and as, put underneath the microscope as much as the front runners would be. So they have a better chance of having an intact marriage.
And this other thing they're talking about, where they're saying that she is mixed, and that brings another element to the royal family. Well, you know, not exactly, and not really. Go back to King George III and his consort, his wife, who was Queen Charlotte of Hanover, and Queen Charlotte Sophia, after which Charlottesville, Virginia is named after her, and Charlotte, North Carolina is named after her, and some other cities are named after her. She was mixed. She was what you call an octoroon, meaning that she had you know, they say if you have black and white parents, which is what Meghan Markle has, a black mom and a white father, so they would call her mulatto. And then if her mom had a daughter who then married like Harry, you're marrying Harry, then he would be what you call a quadroon, meaning 1/4. So from 1/2 to 1/4 black ancestry, and which would be what they call a quadroon, and then the 1/4, if that person would marry a white person, the child would be an octoroon, and so that's the ancestry of Queen Charlotte. Or you look at in France, you could look at it in terms of the family of the one that wrote the Three Musketeers,
Dumas.
Alexandre Dumas. The family starting off in Haiti with Marie Dumas and the Marquis de la Peletier, and they had a son. The son is called in history Alexander the Greatest. You know, Alexander Dumas. They call him Alexander the Greatest, meaning that he was a general in the French army. And by the way, this mulatto would have contested the leadership between him and Napoleon. In France, he lost by 1 vote, and Napoleon became the head of the French Republic. But Dumas, who had moved from Haiti to France, and then he married into the French society, and he would have been the father of Alexander Dumas Pare. And then Alexander Dumas Pare, who would be the quadroon, would have married into French society and would have been the father of the octoroon, who would have been Alexander Dumas Fields. So you can see that this is not something new in terms of the ancestral lines in these European countries, because that line, that there has been this, there are no pure lines anywhere in the world, would be the bottom line of what I'm saying here. So nobody should be have their eyebrows raised because of the interracial aspects of the marriage. That's been going on for a while, and some of those persons will tell you they've been having integration, they call it integration below the waist, in Europe for the longest time. You can go over there and see that in the Russian family, where you have Alexander Pushkin, and look at that line and see how that was part of the royal line in Russia. In fact, Pushkin is the one that gave the Russians this mulatto is the one that gave the Russians the Russian language, made the Russian language live, because before Pushkin, the Russians wrote in French and disavowed their own language. Pushkin made the language live, and so Russia today owes itself to the strain, what I call, and I call it the same thing that Maud Menard calls it, the cultural creativity of admixture. meaning that when groups blend, you don't take it doesn't go down. It elevates, because you're bringing the cultures together also, and those cultures enrich each other. So Maud Bernard is saying the cultural creativity and mixtures is exactly what we see in Europe. Okay, we're going to take a break. I'm going to stop our gossip and get on to what we plan to talk about today. We'll take a break, and we'll see you back in 4 minutes from WFOV. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we will continue what we're doing here at allpointstv.com.
No, another thing I was going to say just before I want to make sure we got the break first, but actually Bonaparte actually might have been more Italian. I guess there was original spelling that looked more Italian for the last name. So, and his mom did fight the French on Corsica, so against the French. So yeah, that's another mixture there.
Yeah, and the mixture, it's interesting. I'm reading a book right now about Carthage, and Carthage, which would have been founded by, and a lot of myths around it, but Dido, D-I-D-O, or Dido, who came from western Lebanon, so that you have the Lebanese strand going into what would be North Africa, where Carthage, or Carthatus, as it was called in ancient times, which is in between Libya to the east and Algeria to the west, and sandwiched in between those two is today Tunisia, formerly called Carthage. And you have an Asian strand that is mixing in with the population that probably goes back to about 8,000 BC. And so you have, and by the way, that's also a strand out of which Hannibal, who was born in 247, and will fight in what they call the Second Punic War. You have this mixture. All I'm making reference to here is that what we saw this weekend, if anybody had their eyebrows raised because of the mixing of the population, the royal families, that's not anything new in Europe. And it is nothing new anywhere where there's been multiple groups on the same soil, even in the United States. And anyone thinking that Obama, everybody was so impressed with Obama being, quote unquote, the first president, I wasn't impressed with him. I knew he was not the first black president. He was the first person that claimed to have been a black president out of the, coming out of the closet. And he was more in the closet than some of the ones that were in the closet back in the time period when they had presidents like Andrew Jackson and Warren G. Harding. They were in the closet, claiming that they didn't have claiming their white ancestry, but not claiming their black ancestry, which is what is written about in two major sources. One of which written by J. Rogers, called "The 5 Negro Presidents." I suggest you pick that pamphlet up. And then the person that built upon the research of J. Rogers, which was Dr. Auset, A-U-S-E-T, Dr. Auset Bakufu, and read her book called The Six. See, she didn't say Negro presidents. She said the six black presidents. And you can see the transition where when Negro was the term used in the earlier times, J. Rogers used the word the Negro presidents. She later on, the word has been, we stopped speaking Spanish. Black people used to be angry when you would call them black, but if you call them black in Spanish, that was okay. So Negro, the word Negro means black in Spanish. Now, as long as you call them Negroes, back there during the time when W. Du Bois was around, right? Okay, we back. I'm glad that WFOV came back. We were kind of hanging around, babbling until you got back on the network, because I've not even gotten to my subject yet. We still kind of gossiping over here. Well,
in your defense, and I thought of it, all this is tied to history, and that's what your major thrust is always. It is tied to it because you're just showing that some people think this is so unique, like you were saying, and it really isn't all that unique, because my own family I have Asian ancestry in there, mixed in there. and 1,000 years ago. And I brought that up to my dad one time, and he was outraged. I mean, we had a big fight over that.
Yeah.
Because he was even. But I showed him the books, the history books. My mom's family is Hungarian. Their origins are actually kind of murky. They don't really know exactly where the Hungarians really are from, exactly the region. There's a mixture there as well.
John, don't forget that the way you actually sealed treaties when you were having a war, and don't forget the 100 Years' War, the War of the Roses. I mean, it's not just a movie. These things happen in history. And the way you actually seal the peace is to have the royal families marrying into each other. That way you know that you're going to have peace, because his daughter, the daughter of the king, is in that house over there. And how are you going to create a war in the house where you have the peace treaty when the daughter is living in your house? You go and call and create a war against her father and see what happens when you go to sleep.
See, the thing is, people want to see, Americans are so interested when they've taught history. They're always taught to look at the social movements, like the women's suffrage movement, the civil rights movement. But if you really want to study the bulk of human history, you have to go to cemeteries, because you get a better feel for what actually happened. And matter of fact, I would say even the cemeteries are actually probably an outcome of a more civilized process. If you actually want to just imagine where everywhere you're walking throughout the old world, somebody's probably laying there dead, buried, because of some stupid political conflict or some religious conflict or some other power play. So guess what? History is written in blood. It's not the civil rights movement and the women's suffrage movement are exemplaries for two reasons. They're largely bloodless. Another thing is, too, they didn't have a great deal of hostility and violence to meet with been met with that. And the third one is that there was an apparatus in place for that to take effect. But if you want to look at history, you have to see it in blood.
Yeah, when I look at history and I see these transitional things that have occurred, I don't see how we can miss how we're one race. Not only because the human race, we're all part of the human family, but because even in the different races, you are fooled by the physical appearance, and you would never know, looking at some people, that they have black ancestry, or looking at some people you would not think they have white ancestry. I mean, like Obama. I mean, we know that Obama's dad lived in Kenya, and his mother was from Kansas here in the United States. But if you look at Obama, you would not necessarily know that Obama had a white mother, and Obama was not claiming his mother when he ran for president, because he was claiming his mom. He could not have been talking about he's running as a black person for the presidency, because his mom, being black, as he was claiming he was black, he might run for an office in Kenya, but there's nothing in his father's strand that legitimized his citizenship in this country. His mom was the one that did that, but he didn't run as a white person. He ran as a black person, and that tells us a lot about how things have changed also, because we moved from Negro to black and moved from denying our black ancestry to run for the highest office in the country, and now we're claiming it, because there's no longer an albatross around our neck in this country. And I don't care what they say. The conditions in America has improved, and Obama is an example of it. And of course, I have to tell you this, it's improved so much that I didn't feel compelled to vote for him the second time around. I voted for him. I didn't feel compelled to vote for him for the first time, but I did, because I thought he was going to bring something new to the table around race. When I found this joker getting in there and dividing us even more so, inviting Sharpton into the Oval Office and Black Lives Matter and all that nonsense, in 2012, I couldn't hardly wait to get to the polls.
But you know what? I
voted against him, and I'm glad I did.
I hated the Clintons, but when Bill Clinton basically said he was the first black president and all this, people laughed. But if you want to look at if the demographic people say the blacks usually live, all this poverty line and all this stuff, in that sense, Well, Clinton did meet that mark more than Obama did. But Obama went to top-notch colleges. I mean, let's face it, he lived a kind of a jet-setter lifestyle, flipping back and forth between continents and stuff. I mean, I don't think he could ever actually identify with ghetto youth, in the American cities. I don't see how he could. He never was there until later on after he got elected a senator. And before, they'd be a community organizer. So I don't see where you have this great kinship to the average black person in America.
No, I look at Obama as a usurper. That's why I'm waiting right now for someone to tell me, and I've been asking this for a number of years now, someone to tell me what was Obama doing on the steps of the old State House in Springfield, Illinois, standing there where Lincoln has stood in 1858 when they had the Lincoln-Douglas debate. What was Obama doing there?
Political appropriation, because it wasn't his party that Lincoln belonged to.
That's precisely my point, John. I'm glad you used those. Those are the correct words. It was a political appropriation of history. And people have not caught on to it even at this late date. This man was in office 8 years as a fraud. Barack Obama will go down in history not only because of the things we're finding out about his administration now, given that we now know they had a plant a mole inside of Donald Trump's campaign. And John, I have to say this: I think that they had planned to put Donald Trump in jail. If he had lost that election, they were building a case against him, fraudulent case. But they plan to punish him as a way of signaling that you don't run from the outside of these two parties that actually believe they own this country.
But you know what? Here's what I would say. The FBI, the CIA are all supposed to be intelligent gathering operations. They're sniffing around our bum holes all the time, put my crass way of putting it. Why shouldn't they go after the people, investigate those who are trying to put themselves into power?
Yeah.
More than they do. They come after us vehemently, sniffing up our bums. Why shouldn't they? Everybody who goes into public office, throws their hat in the thing, should have to know that's automatic consent. They can sniff up your background and do whatever they want to because to see if you pass muster. They should be given vetting.
Yeah,
they're not.
Yeah, Obama is a usurper in terms of his claim to have had some connection to the blacks' history in this country. And if he did, what was that history as a connection to? His mom, his dad was over in Kenya. His mom has no connection in those cotton fields. And so he was a usurper in that sense. And I see a further usurpation taking place. This man got in there and misrepresented black people, first of all, and then did not do anything to justify his usurpation running as a black person. Chicago didn't improve. And that's what Candace Owens is trying to teach out here.
The governor of Illinois go to prison?
That's what she's trying to say.
Didn't the governor of Illinois go to prison ultimately after Obama left office because he left the senator position to take the role of the president? That was an open seat, and wasn't the governor of Illinois convicted of influence peddling and trying to get
influence peddling?
Yeah, so I mean that right there shows the corruption, and he was obviously part of that.
Yeah, the politics is the part we're finding this out now. Not that we're finding it out, but a lot of people in America are finding out how corrupt the political system is in this country, and it's because we have been sold a bill of goods that are not bill of goods. It's a bill of bads. They've sold us a lot of nonsense about how the government operates here as if it operates differently here than it does in other parts of the world. And it doesn't operate in where different in the world. John, let me ask you, who's that philosopher that said that man is born free, but everywhere he's in chains? Remember that saying that man is born free? That wasn't Nietzsche, was it?
No, that was Rousseau.
Rousseau. I thought it was Rousseau. So, I mean, man is born free, and everywhere, man is found, and where woman is found, where children are found, where human beings are found. Everywhere on the planet, mankind is in chains. And we see it all over the world, and we recognize it in places like Russia, China, Cuba, North Korea. We don't recognize it here.
But in our defense, as corrupt as our government is, our poor are still getting taken care of, and our roads still get built, even though they might have a huge cost attached to them that shouldn't have been paid off at the beginning. Like I guess like 4 or 5% of what's all cost in New York and New Jersey actually is automatically written into the figures to go to the mobs, the organized crime families. So I mean, basically, just look at our politicians as a very large gangster family. That's what they are.
That gets me back on track to what I wanted to talk about today before I start talking about the Prince Harry's wedding to now the Duchess of Success. I mean, I wanted to mention that, but I didn't want to spend as much time on it. But it gets me back to what I really wanted to talk about, because I want to pick up where we were last week when we were talking about this idea of the Bill of Rights. I was saying last week that there is no Bill of Rights in the Constitution, that the government does not give us rights. The government is not a custodian of our rights. The people are the custodians of their rights. I mean, that's why we have the preamble that says, "We the people of the United States, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." Or you can go and read the words written in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, which I was reading from the document last week, but I can quote it as well. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all, listen to Jefferson very carefully here, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, now listen to this carefully, Jefferson is speaking very specifically here about some recognition of where your rights come from. He calls them inalienable rights. Then he says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers. There's some, obviously, that therefore there are some powers the government has that's not justifiable, but deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So what does government do? And why is government constituted? We constitute government to protect the rights that are inalienable. And if you read the preamble to the Constitution, the introduction to the document, then you'll see where they capitalize when they say the blessings of liberty, the blessings of liberty. They capitalize the word blessing because it is consistent with them saying that the rights are inalienable, rights you're born with, rights that you have because you are a creation. And so we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings, and blessings capitalized, secure the blessing of liberty. Secure the blessing of liberty. Because you've been blessed with liberty at birth. Man is born free. And you institute government to secure those freedoms. So it does not come from government. So when I said last week that there is no Bill of Rights in the Constitution, that what you have instead, and I want to read it to you from the document itself to show you that they call the 10 Amendments, the first 10 Amendments in the Constitution, a Bill of Rights, is nothing other than brainwashing by the government that makes it appear that your rights are coming from the people who are the political leaders. Rights are inalienable. So if these rights come from government, and this is a Bill of Rights, then why does it read this way? And let me read it to you so that we can all get on the same page here. Because rights don't come from the government. We institute government in order to protect the rights we're born with. So here's the First Amendment. And the first 10 amendments, all those amendments, the first 10, will all pass in the same year at the same time, pass as a package of bills. But they're not a Bill of Rights. They are a Bill of Restraints. And you have to understand this because it is a continuation of the restraints that were placed upon government, because we understand government can go out of control. And so we put the separation of powers in the Constitution. We put the check and balance system in the document, in the Constitution of the United States. We put some powers on the national level, and those powers that we did not enumerate in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, we therefore have those rights retained by the states that were delegating the rights to the federal government. So some rights, some powers, I should say rights, some powers that were bequeathed to the federal government, enumerated in Article 1, Section 8. Those rights not enumerated, meaning delegated, then those rights that were not so bequeathed to the states were retained by the states and to the people who were in fact the ones that were the progenitors of the state. Those rights were held in abeyance from the federal government. You think the federal government is following that mandate? They're out of control, because they have switched around the idea, and even some people even think that the federal government created the states. I've had people argue that on radio, and they don't realize how much embarrassing, how much of an embarrassment that is, to claim that the states were a creation of the federal government. If that is true, then who is that dictating to the federal government what its powers are? Who is that speaking in Article 1, Section 8 when they delegate the powers of the federal government? Who is that speaking? Is that the federal government speaking? Do we actually believe the federal government is setting parameters upon its own powers? The federal government is trying to go out of control and follow the restraints placed upon its powers. And those restraints were put there by the states. The states created the federal government, and it dictates what it is in fact surrendering of their own sovereignty to the federal government. Okay, that's one point you got to keep in mind here as we go to looking at some of these amendments, which they call a Bill of Rights. It's not a Bill of Rights. It is a continuation of the restraints that were placed upon the federal government because they feared the federal government going out of power. I mean, going out of control because of its continued acquiring of more and more power that was not in fact bequeathed to it at the founding of the Constitution of 1787. They don't believe the government can be restrained by just those restrictions, so they wanted guarantees. They put other restrictions in place to further restrain the federal government. So this is not a Bill of Rights. These are further restraints. If you want to call them a bill, because it's 10 in number, these will make up a bill of further restraints upon the federal government. And if I'm wrong in saying that, let me read to you what some of these amendments say. Amendment 1. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievance. Congress will not abridge these rights. So are they coming from the federal government? No, they're saying the government cannot step on these rights that people have. And they're saying here, they should make no law that will abridge these rights. Look at Amendment 2, the right to bear arms, which they are now discussing this one because every time there's a shooting, rather than securing the children in the building, every time they have a shooting incident, after announcing outside, this place doesn't have any guns in it, guns are restricted from this place. Do they have that on the congressional building? They put that sign out there saying that nobody in the Congress, nobody in the congressional building will be armed. Do they have that out there for them? They announced in front of these children, in buildings that children are in, that this is a gun-free zone. And you don't think people are going to go in there? They're not going into the police department and shooting it up. I think we've had, what, nine school shootings. 10 people lost their lives because of this foolishness by these politicians. And then they go and try to grab, the Second Amendment. Here's the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
And the anti-gun people don't think that thousands and thousands of laws in different locations and stuff is an infringement. And so it definitely is an infringement. Okay, and it's also hasn't been effective.
They are infringing upon it whenever they put any restrictions upon the right to bear arms in this country. The reason why you have the right to bear arms is because you have inalienable rights, the right to your life. If you have the right to your life, you have the right then to use those means to protect your life. And they're trying to describe that this weapon can be used and that weapon can be used, and this one cannot be used, as if you can prescribe what weapons will secure the life of a person based upon some bureaucrat making that decision.
Here's the schizophrenia of the people who are progressives. They say that nobody should have a right to weapons except for police and military. But those people historically have always been proven to most likely abuse those rights, that power. So why would I want to give them more power? Those types of people to become politicians. Why would I want them to have the only means of real force? Why would I want to put that in their hands?
And John, you're aware as well as I am aware, and those who appreciate the Second Amendment, and also the NRA. I have a lot of appreciation for the NRA, and the reason why I appreciate the NRA is because they understand the purpose of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is designed to make sure that people in this country are armed, so that if the government does not respect words that are written on parchment, let's say that they wake up to the understanding that these are just words on paper, and they can or they cannot decide to follow these restrictions. Well, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security, you said we're security of a free state. The people have the right to secure a free state. They are born in freedom, and they have the right to bear arms to defend their life and also to defend their freedom. That's why the Second Amendment is there. And that's why they expose these children, because they know how you feel about your children. You see children getting killed, you want that stopped like yesterday. Because as one parent said, that we are supposed to have our children burying us, not us as adults and parents burying our children. We all understand that. And we don't want our children shot down in school. So then they put these insecure zones in here, and you have this carnage, and they know you'll run to attack the Second Amendment, thinking the problem is guns. And the problem is not guns. The problem are these politicians that are telling people that those buildings there are insecure, and you can go in there and shoot up the place. I would like to see them, there are some ways to stop this carnage. They could have done it a long time ago. And the mere fact they have not done that, but around them there's all kinds of security. I'll tell you another thing. Let me make another point here. I went to Washington, Michigan, where Donald Trump came to speak. and I couldn't get in. We couldn't get in. Two of us went down there from Flint. We couldn't get in. There were so many people there. There's probably as many people outside as was inside the auditorium. And we decided that we were going to leave early. We knew he was winding down, so we're going to leave early. And we got to the end of that big field we were in, and they were not letting anybody out. They said that they didn't know when the president was going to finish his talk, and they did not know when the motorcade will be, leaving and going down the street where we were, and they could not have the motorcade insecure by having to stop while people crossing the street, because that puts the president in harm's way. Well, I'll tell you what, we were stood there 45 minutes. It was kind of cold out there that night. And we stood there 45 minutes because the president kept going beyond the time zone. He's continued to speak. And finally, 45 minutes later, after the motorcade had passed by, and they had a lot of cars in front of the motorcade. They had two limousines. You couldn't tell which one the president was in. Had a lot of cars in back of the motorcade, and motorcycles, police officers on horses. That's what you do when you want to protect the president of the United States. But I will tell you this. I looked at that film again when I saw that security around President Donald Trump. I went and watched that motorcade in Dallas again, in which Kennedy went into Dealey Plaza. And the Kennedy car was the lead car. Somebody explain that to me. If you do not want to secure someone, you don't put security around them. And that's the children, and that's what happened to Kennedy. Kennedy was the lead car. They put that car in front. This was a well orchestrated coup d'etat in this country. And you do that when you have an agenda, and they have an agenda here with these schools. You have the right to bear arms, and you have the right to protect your life. And that does not come from the government. It comes from the inalienable rights that Jefferson was talking about in the Declaration of Independence. Okay, we're gonna get out of here. We'll be back next week with another part of the discussion about this. We have not finished with it yet. We want you to follow your dream. If you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.